What is greedflation?
You cannot speak to me that way.
Actually, I can, because ding dong, I'm the one who's paying, so maybe shut up and eat.
It's become a term used at the focal point of recent debates, referring to the practice of corporations exploiting inflationary periods to drive up prices more than their actual cost increases would justify, thereby padding profit margins. This phenomenon raises complex questions about the forces driving inflation and the ethical implications of corporate pricing strategies.
It's probably hard to have sympathy for the poor, tortured billionaire.
The idea that corporations are evil is too simple. They are, but why? Again, greedflation reflects how some companies capitalize on inflation by not only trying to pass on the rising cost of inflation to customers, but also marking up prices beyond those that is used to expand their profits. During COVID-19, for example, businesses faced genuine cost increases from supply chain disruptions and heightened demand. While many price increases were reasonable given the circumstances, there's evidence to suggest that certain companies raised their prices far more than their increased expenses would necessitate, and they used this inflation as a cover to boost profit margins. Mounting research has pointed to corporate profits as a significant factor in recent inflation trends. According to a study by the Economic Policy Institute from April to September 2023, corporate profits accounted for 53% of inflation, a dramatic rise compared to their 11% contribution over the previous 4 decades. This suggests that rather than merely compensating for increased costs, some firms have opportunistically expanded their profits.
Hired her knowing she'd die.
The food industry in particular has come under intense scrutiny regarding greedflation. Large grocery store chains in North America have been accused of hiking prices beyond inflation rates. Canada's Competition Bureau launched an investigation into grocery store sectors on grounds of price fixing and excessive profiteering. In the US, legislators have similarly raised concerns, urging investigations into potential price manipulation among major grocery store chains. This scrutiny has really brought to light a broader issue within the industry, where necessities like food see high price increases, and this directly impacts consumer livelihoods.
Go on, fuck off. You nosy fucking pedestrians.
But taking a step back, corporations exist to increase profits for their shareholders, really in the very short term. And the easiest way to do this, obviously, if you're running the companies, is to increase prices. Everyone else in these companies are just doing their job, and doing the job well just means making more profit for the corporation. It kind of seems like greed is a weird word to describe it. Is a mosquito being greedy by sucking more blood? That's just how the mosquito was designed, and extracting profit is just how corporations are designed.
Okay, it's like being a superhero, only better.
While the concept of greedflation has gained traction, some economists have argued that it oversimplifies inflation's causes. They highlight factors like global supply chain disruptions, labor shortages, and increased consumer demand as a major inflation contributor, emphasizing that rising prices might not solely be driven by corporate profiteering. For instance, a report by the Federal Reserve Bank of San Francisco attributes much of the recent inflation to these logistical and labor issues rather than abnormal profit margins. In Canada, similar trends might be evident. The Center for Future Work found that the corporate profits have swollen disproportionately to inflation, with wages failing to keep pace. This, however, undercuts the argument that wage growth is the primary inflation driver. In fact, wage stagnation combined with rising corporate profit implies that the inflation burden is being borne by consumers rather than workers receiving higher wages. Now, some economists worry that focusing too heavily on corporate greed might ignore deeper structural inflation drivers such as shifts in global supply chain, energy costs, or changing labor dynamics. They argue that these systemic issues could require long-term solutions rather than temporary measures targeting corporate profits alone. The whole thing's a mess. Viva la revolution? Maybe. The debate over greedflation has sparked calls for policy action to curb excessive corporate profit taking during inflationary periods.
Well, I know a fellow service industry worker when I see one.
Some U.S. senators have proposed taxes on excess profits and enhanced antitrust enforcements. They argue that such policies could deter companies from exploiting inflation to unjustifiably raise prices and harm consumers. In the UK, similar calls have been made for a windfall tax on companies seen to profit excessively from current economic conditions. However, policy responses to greedflation come with potential risks.
No!
Measures like excessive profit taxes could discourage corporate investments, while stricter price regulations might result in supply constraints if companies feel disincentivized to maintain production levels. Achieving a balance between curbing exploitative practices and maintaining economic viability is a challenge that policymakers will have to navigate very carefully. Addressing greedflation effectively may require a holistic mix of policy interventions, corporate transparency, and enhanced market competition to ensure that price increases remain fair and just. By fostering accountability while recognizing broader inflationary drivers, policymakers can better protect consumers and stabilize the economy during turbulent times. Or, just eat the rich. Eat them up. Nom 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 nom.